Welcome to the Guy at the Movies podcast with Joe and Sean. I am Joe. He is Sean. And welcome back, Kevin.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
Welcome back for our final episode of Scream Watch, where we'll be diving into Scream 4 and prepping ourselves for Scream 5, which is, 14 months away at this point. So, we might talk about it again in the future.
Just in time.
Just in time. Who knows? But we'd love to start off every episode talking a little bit about what we've been watching. And I haven't been watching much, so I'm just going to touch on them real quick and then move on to you fine people who have much longer lists. I keep hitting this desk, so this should be a fun night. First and foremost, I watched The Witches on HBO Max last week. It's the remake of the 1990s Anjelica Huston, kind of on par with like Jumanji in how it ruined childhoods for some kids. How creepy it was. This one is more campy. My favorite part of it was Octavia Spencer by far. I thought she was having a lot of fun with it, and she was just really solid. Anne Hathaway was fine, and the rest of the movie was forgettable, in my opinion. The first one's totally better in that sense. I see that, Sean, I know you watched it.
Right? I did, yes. So I didn't like it as much as you, which means I really, really didn't like it because you didn't like it that much either. I thought Anne Hathaway was a little bit tough. It was this, she was trying to play this very comedic, very showy role, but she tried to ground it in realism, which, don't do that when half of your skull opens up to be a mouth. Just play the cartoon character you're supposed to play. Yeah. Octavia Spencer was probably the best part. She was amazing. She managed to balance like this fun movie, this like really like what should have been a cliched character, but of course, as Spencer always does, just like absolutely makes that something of her own. I am a little bit sick of her constantly having to play grandmas.
I looked up how old she was because I'm like, they're calling her grandma. Like, what's going on here?
She's 48, right? Or
something right around there.
So that bothers me, and also the fact that this is a different thing, but that Netflix show where she is playing Taraji P. Henson's not Taraji P. Henson, excuse me, the comedian. Oh no,
I'm not sure.
I think your fiance just shouted it.
She did. What's Sam? Tiffany Haddish. Tiffany Haddish. Tiffany Haddish is 40. Octavia Spencer is 48. Octavia Spencer was playing Tiffany Haddish's mom. So there's a problem right there, I think. But regardless, okay, that's a large thing. I think that
she also the star of the movie Ma?
Yeah, which was hilarious, though.
There you go. Helping with your canon here, Sean. You're right. You're
getting my memory exercise. And the issue I had with the entire movie was that there was a lot of really fun set pieces.
Yeah.
But it was an hour, 40 minutes, and it felt short because I didn't know any of the characters by the end. I didn't care about any of the characters. I didn't care about the setting, and I was like, this shouldn't feel short. I almost wanted it to feel long.
Well, and how about the third mouse? They kind of just threw that mouse in there, and then I found out afterwards it was Kristen Chenoweth, which I didn't even realize. I don't know. It was just, you can tell why they dumped it on HBO Max. Like, it's perfect for that. And I'm sure kids would love it. Like, good for them. But the OG is where you should go for a true witches experience. So that was interesting.
What does it say about Zemeckis? Because that's his latest role, and it's I feel like he's been out of the spotlight for a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I want to know more about what has happened with the effects in this because they're really bad, and Zemeckis is not known for that.
Really?
And
he's the exact opposite. He's an effects man.
One could argue they are nostalgic, is a polite way I wanted to put it, where it's just like, oh, it makes it feel like an old movie, where the effects are really bad. I think that there was some really cool character designs. I think there was some cool stuff happening with it. And once again, really thrilling, fun scenes, which, have to do with somewhat decent effects, but those are just few and far between. So it was a little bit rough to watch.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I don't know that it was a bad movie on Zemeckis' part. I also recognize that I just don't like the story. So I think he was trying to play it closer to Roald Dahl's.
It's very cruel, right?
What, the story itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think he was trying to get back to what the author originally wanted, because I think the author was upset with the 1990s one because they changed the ending or something of that sort. I don't know. Just wasn't into it. How about Borat, though? I just realized that I talked about it a little bit last week, but you guys watched it.
God, what a movie that was needed. I mean, this movie, like, I think it did improve upon itself. You said it was better than the original, and I will be very close to agreeing with you. Now, other people will get mad. It's like, but the original is always better because it's supposed to be. But I look at something like this and I say, they put a scripted plot behind it. They put a surprisingly heartwarming story behind it.
Right.
And also they took what like is usually like in the first one was sort of an umbrella criticism of America, and in this they really drove a knife into what's wrong. Right. I'm also impressed by, you know, we obviously got a lot of the interviews and a lot of the real people that are horrible people like the first one. We got a lot of people that were good, very good at heart. They interview the Holocaust survivors when he goes to the synagogue, and you know he's going on both ends of that one, like because he is like coming in there with like his typical anti-Semitic character, and then he's also talking with this woman who did actually survive the Holocaust. Who, by the way, I will just say, you know, peek behind the curtain, she was in on it. I looked it up, and that's the only person they're announcing was in on it because she did pass away before the release. And so they, they dedicated it to her. But then on the other half of this, the family is suing the movie. So there's going to be a few like twists and turns there. But
I'm pretty sure that was thrown out, though.
Oh, okay. Okay. Very good. Very good. I'm glad that I just heard that. Because I just love the wholesomeness of this movie, which I didn't expect wholesome from a Borat movie, but it kind of delivered.
Kevin, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, it was nuts to see it so heartfelt. I kept being like, wait, what? And then in a Borat movie? I liked it a lot. I think it's a great sequel. I don't know if it totally answers the question of why now and why are you making this here? I get to the end of it. I don't think it's going to change anybody's minds, unfortunately, to say. I think if for some reason you had a high opinion of, spoiler alert, Rudy Giuliani, but the person who is at the end there, if you had a high opinion of the person who he dunks on at the end and makes it look terrible, which I'm sure you've all heard the news of who appears at the end of Borat by this point, because it was spoiled for me. But like, in the next 10 seconds, I'm going to give a spoiler to the end of this. But Rudy Giuliani gets dunked on like a clown that he is. But if you thought that Rudy Giuliani was not a clown before this movie, I don't know what to say to you, unfortunately. And so I liked it a lot. I thought there was I thought there was too much scripted events in it. While his daughter is a breakout role, is her first, I think, starring role. I forget what the actress's name is, but she was incredible. And at times I was like, wait, is this like Tracy Ullman in Incredible Prosthetics? Because she has really good delivery, really good comedic timing, keeps up with Sacha Baron Cohen, and I liked it a lot. I thought at times it was just like an extended episode of This Is America or whatever his show is. And I was like, did we need a full movie? Who knows? But I enjoyed myself the whole time. It was a long week. I watched it on Friday, and it was a nice way to go into the weekend. So, yeah, very nice.
It definitely provides some levity. I was impressed with how it dove into issues, and even in like the ludicrous nature of the different scenes that are, you know, leaving you saying, oh my God, and all that stuff. Being able to,
Sean, sorry to cut you off. I just realized real quick that Sean was saying before, like, this goes into something deeper about America. It goes specifically into the misogyny of America, way deeper and better than the first one ever did. And the first one, you're like, are we in on the joke? Are we not in on the joke? And this one is very much like Borat is discovering that misogyny is a bad thing in real time and showing how prevalent it is in our country. I think was pretty great.
But then, of course, they wrap it up with a ridiculous, I will call it a plot twist because I didn't see it coming.
The best part of the film.
I thought that was so well done, and I'm not going to say what it was, but the ending and how they tie it all together was just, I loved it. I thought
what it seemed like with all of that, it seemed the largest part of that is that this movie takes a turn halfway through, and it's because probably while they were filming it, it took that turn. Yep. And so the fact that they decided to like actually tie that together it's sort of like it would have been brilliant if they knew about what was happening the whole way through, but it's brilliant on its own. I mean, really.
They did a good job with it. They did a good job with it.
Spoiler alert for those at home, but we are currently living in the middle of a global pandemic, and that happened while Borat was filming, and that's what Sean was talking about.
Well, I didn't want that to lead to the okay. Well,
anyway, here we are.
Teasing. I'm scared of spoiling stuff now because you guys are giving me shit at the pre-show. So
All right. Well, I also watched The Craft, 1996. The Craft. I will be watching the sequel / reboot that comes out tomorrow, The Craft Legacy. So I'll be watching that tonight. But I, of course, waited to the last minute to watch the original Craft. Kind of enjoyed it. It was a very much a '90s movie. Nev Campbell and Skeet Ulrich playing the same role that he plays in Scream, essentially. So he didn't have much range in the 90s. I don't know if he has it now. The other one I watched was Survivor Skills. Survivor Skills is a film I watched as part of the Philadelphia Film Festival. It is a very meta film. It is essentially a police training video. And you're following this like prim and proper police officer. And it's presented like an old VHS tape. But then like, he starts going off script because he is towing the line between intuition and training. And it's very interesting. I will be completely honest that I'm not quite sure what it was trying to say at the end. So that frustrated me a little bit, but other than that, hey, good week of a few movies. Let's throw a curveball here to Sean and jump into Kevin. What have you been watching?
That is a curveball to both Sean and me. I am almost done with Bly Manor for those keeping up score. I've got one
slowest Netflix watcher ever.
Yeah, I don't really love watching TV, and it takes I don't binge too much, I'm sorry to say. And this one like is emotionally tolling. So after 2 episodes, you're like, all right, I need to go lay down in the fetal position for a little bit. And it's clicking, baby. We're in that second half. Just like the first season was like twists start to twist and the rules start to like apply themselves more. And I'm enjoying it quite a bit. I'm excited to see. I think I like the first season more, but I am really loving this one as well. What did I want to talk about though? Oh, I saw this short I want to give a shout out to called 2020, and it's a parody of 1917, but now. And so it's supposed to look like one shot. It's that instead of delivering a note to his brother, the main character and his roommate have to go out and get toilet paper because they're out. And then as they do so, kind of chronologically go through every event so far, every big event, kind of some that you've already forgotten about, right?
They were able to fit that into a short.
it was a longer short. I think it's like 17 minutes maybe, but it's like actually really well done. I wasn't a huge fan of 1917. Ended up liking this more, to be honest. And then just another shout out for American Utopia, which I think I know is on HBO Max, and I think is just a beautiful solve for whatever you need and whatever is ailing you in these times. That's the Talking Heads, David Byrne live concert directed by Spike Lee. And then lastly, just I wanted to give a happy birthday shout out to Bob Hoskins, whose birthday was yesterday. The GOAT. We were truly not worthy. Looking back through how many indelible characters he's given us over the years, the man was truly incredible. So shout outs to Bob.
Nice. Very nice. Sean, you didn't watch anything, it looks like.
I saw every movie ever, and it's going to get worse for me because I thought I was going away this next weekend, but with all of the issues with a little bit of the COVID scares, and there's a little bit of spike in Connecticut, I'm staying home, and so I'm going to be staying home alone, and so I'm going to be first I'll watch that trilogy. But I'm going to be quite literally watching every movie. So just get ready for next week. I'm going to obviously go through these pretty quick. First of all, shout out to the 2020 YouTube video, because that is actually quite amazing. It's very well done. It's a perfect spoof of 1917. Like, works amazingly. So that's what I'll say to that one. And props to Kevin for showing me that. Thank you, Kevin. So for me, like some of the older movies I watched was The Public Enemy, a Jimmy Cagney gangster movie from the 30s. Really great, 70 minutes, but you get the full rise and fall of the gangster in that 70 minutes, where most cover that in 3 hours. So really cool, kind of old Hollywood deal there. I rewatched The Sixth Sense. Ages incredibly well, absolutely amazing. I don't know what happened with Shyamalan. I know he's had a bit of a resurgence in his career, which I really like, because this is an absolute masterstroke of writing, directing, acting, everything involved in it. The American President, I figured I didn't have enough Sorkin yet, so I went with his, I call this the West Wing trial, because it's pretty much his tryout for the West Wing. And it is really good, really amazing, holds up very well as well. Although Andrew Shepard definitely shouldn't get elected because he did a lot of messed up stuff, like sleep with a lobbyist that was involved in a vote. Anyway, now we're going to get in. Oh, no, excuse me. Don't Look Now. It's a 70s horror film with Donald Sutherland. That is Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I've talked about that with you. Kevin did an imitation of Donald Sutherland in the Invasion of the Body Snatchers instead of Don't Look Now. And we talked about this. But Don't Look Now is just this like amazing, mysterious thriller that you really don't know what you're scared about, but you're scared about stuff the whole time. So like for a filmmaker to pull that off is absolutely brilliant. And so now for the new movies I watched, Bad Hair on Hulu. Really, really cool idea, really interesting idea, terrible execution. And that bums me out because this is the guy that made Dear White People, Justin Simeon, like really, really talented actor and writer. And this just kind of lost its way. I didn't really know what it was trying to spoof at some points. It was kind of unfortunate. Rebecca, Netflix. I thought I slept through a portion of this movie, and then I rewound it to see, and I actually didn't sleep through a portion of it. Those were actually scenes that I watched. So literally, it is like sleeping through a movie. That is how awful this movie is. It's boring, boring, boring. I don't care about those characters. I was hoping for a meteor about halfway through. Man, oh man, did those characters suck. And, hey, Armie Hammer was wearing an amazing mustard jacket, so this should win Best Costume Design because that was wonderful. But other than that, I am out on that movie. Wow, that was a rough one to watch. Next up is, we talked about Borat, so I'm going to move on to, I'm going to talk about this one last, but also I'll go with The Wolf of Snow Hollow first. This was really one of the cooler things, The Wolf of Snow Hollow, because this was help me out, Kevin, Jim Cummings. Jim Cummings, who recently directed and starred in Thunder Road. This was his very interesting Halloween monster movie, which was really good and really cheesy, but only for a little bit until you realize what's going on. And this was actually a very fun movie. And man, was it for a horror movie that's like, about a wolf, they focus on the main character instead, who is just like this really not great person, but you have a redemption arc for him. And man, did I love just watching him and thinking about him the whole way through. Like truly, like really something great. And then the last one I'm going to talk about here is On the Rocks. And I'm going to talk about On the Rocks last because I'm getting a little bit upset about how this one's being treated. Everyone's saying and Ricky Lindholm, and everyone's saying about how On the Rocks is just like, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. And this is what happens with Sofia Coppola films. When they come out, everyone's like, yeah, it's okay. It's pretty all right, with the exception of a couple that got nominated for Oscars. But, usually people just come out saying it's okay, it's not that great. And then years later, you're like, oh, this was actually kind of a masterpiece. Now, I'm not using that M-word masterpiece because that one is a very tough one to use. This is a really good movie, though. Like way more than the middling sort of good reviews it's getting. It might be, oh boy, I'm going to say it. Is it Bill Murray's best performance? Oh, don't say it. Don't say it. Because Lost in Translation exists. Ghostbusters exists. Groundhog Day exists. I know. But I'm telling you, the character that Bill Murray creates in this is so good because he is a bad, bad person. And he is so charming, and you actually fall in love with him most of the time. And I'm telling you that, I looked at this movie and I really loved it. I mean, I know people exactly like this guy, and it's kind of like it. And it was. I'm assuming he called them and followed them because it is a scary interpretation. So I will say Bill Murray is pretty amazing in this. Rashida Jones is playing a pretty a difficult role to play. Where she's just kind of like the frazzled wife, kind of the tired,
a thankless role.
Thankless, thank you very much. Yeah, a very thankless role. And look, that's what, but it was still a great one. And so this movie like kind of tricks you in the narrative. Now that, some people would call that a twist. I don't think it's necessarily a twist. It's more of like, you're going one way on this narrative and then it twists somewhere else. Okay. So that's probably a twist, but, so I would say, the character is like, the Bill Murray character is drawing the narrative and in a certain way is pulling the narrative in a certain way. And it's just great to watch the entire audience go with him the whole time. And the characters go with him until it goes somewhere else. This movie is way better than people are giving credit for. Everyone's giving it a pretty good review. They're not giving it a stinker, but this is a good movie. Like I love this one probably the best this week.
It's on my list. All right, so let's move into some of the news. We'll wrap up, I think, this episode with the Scream 4 chat. So let's dive into some of it because I think we're going to have some callbacks to some of the stuff that you were just talking about, actually. So first and foremost, No Time to Die almost ended up on a streamer. And when I say almost ended up, it was explored. It wasn't necessarily like a gung-ho thing. But when No Time Left to Die was moved to, or No Time to Die, when No Time to Die was moved to next year, MGM had explored a potential streaming deal with the likes of Netflix, Amazon, and Apple. Amazon probably would love to get into the game of, more big films because apparently their Borat weekend was phenomenally well received and huge. So very nice. But the asking price for the No Time to Die was going to be $600 million for a 1-year license. Most of the streamers reportedly said, we'll give you $300 million, to which I said, oh, okay, that's the line. But they ultimately decided not to do it. And then franchise producer Barbara Broccoli, which is my favorite producing name, she nixed the potential deal as well. So she's known as like the protector of the franchise. Hey, what could have been? But does it surprise you that they were exploring that with a blockbuster like this?
No, I mean, sorry, I knew that was going to happen. I think that what we're going to realize is that this happened with a lot of movies that are going to next year, is that they 100% explored streamers. I think almost every single one that got moved a year back. Because I think a lot of movies wanted to get released. I think a lot of production companies wanted to release their movies, not dump them, so be it. But like they said, like, hey, we were preparing for this year. We kind of want it this year. Let's go. And so I think that we're getting news on this one because this is, now you got me saying No Time Left to Die, dude.
I don't know why.
Like No Time to Die. And so like, this is something where like everyone's chronicling every moment that's happening. And 600 million versus 300 million. As a guy that today went to the gas station and paid for a bag of popcorn and quarters, I can totally relate to this situation. But I think that, I don't know, like, is 600 million that much? Did they offer that large of one just to say, let's see if some idiot goes for it? And then, like, if they do, it's like, oh, cool, we're very, very, very rich. Or, like, most likely, no, cool, we'll go to the theaters when, the world stopped ending and we'll be able to go in and then we'll make our money that way.
Yeah, two things, Kevin, before I jump over to you. One is that a lot of these studios are just looking for a return on their investment. They have a lot of films that are just sitting out there waiting to make some sort of money back. And that's got to be challenging. I can't imagine. The other is that if this movie is a hit, as some articles are pointing out, it's going to make way more than 600 million potentially. It could cross, much higher than that, as we've seen in the past with big blockbusters. So, I think they would be maybe hurting themselves in the long run. But Kevin, how about you? What are your thoughts on this?
I think you bring up a good point that kind of setting the betting tables on movies is a real crapshoot, and often what studios think is going to be a surefire hit fizzles, and then little indie comedies come out of nowhere to swing big and take in millions of dollars, right? I also think that Borat and We've Got No Time Left to Die are two very different movies in terms of their budget, right? Like Borat looked like it was shot on an iPhone. Not really a detriment. I think it helps its aesthetic. But you could very much tell at times that it was pretty cheaply put together. Not like not like chintzy or like an insult, but just like they did not have to spend much money on what they were putting out there, right? James Bond, I don't know the exact specifics, but I'm pretty sure those are that's an expensive franchise. And I think that this one especially so. I think it's the end of the Daniel Craig era, and I think they're trying to pass the baton. I think they're going to pump a lot of money into it, both the stars that you'll see on the screen and the special effects going into it. So I don't want them to dump it on a streaming service. I'm also like, I don't think I've really gotten into it on the podcast, but like kind of snobby about movies. And I'm not like Christopher Nolan, and I'm not going to tell you like how you should project the film in your theater. But like, I would like to see a movie in its best state, right? In the best way possible. Like, I think one of my best experiences was from a few years ago where I saw
Cats, when you saw Cats in the theaters.
Oh, Joe, you have no idea what you're getting me started on.
Buddy, he has like several monologues about cats.
Get that. We have a time limit.
I know. I hate cats so much. No, I saw a Space Odyssey at the Museum of the Moving Image, which is right down the street from me, they showed it in original 70 millimeter in a soundproof box that was all like egg crate, nothing was leaking out or coming in. And I cried the whole time because the score was so magnificent in the right setting at the right speed, right? And so I think everybody dumping their stuff onto streaming services is really scary for people like me who I'm like, don't go to the bathroom while we're watching something on Netflix. And people are like, why? The bathroom's right there. I'm like, I don't know. I'm that jerk who's like, you got to experience the film,
Don't pee.
Right. Or pee your pants. I do it all the time.
That's exactly.
And on that note,
I feel you on that. Like I'm a purist with this stuff as someone who hasn't been to a theater in like 7 months, and I'm really going nuts about it. Like I am someone that says it needs to be seen in the theater. Like Sam had to literally drag me from seeing The Irishman in theaters because it's like she's like it's on Netflix. Like sit down on the couch.
It belongs in a museum.
Jesus. So speaking of Netflix, though, they did just acquire another film that will be likely coming out next year at this point. It's called Concrete Cowboy, starring Idris Elba, and it follows a 15-year-old who moves in with his estranged father, played by Idris Elba, who then exposes him to the urban cowboy subculture within the city of Philadelphia. It's based on the novel Ghetto Cowboy. It seems really intriguing, actually. I'm kind of interested in this.
I will say it does seem like a Netflix movie, though. Like it, and granted, that doesn't mean bad movie. Like,
what does that mean?
Well, it seems that I don't need to see this in a movie theater. Now, granted, I'll see any type of movie in a movie theater because I love it. I'll see First Cow in a movie theater because First Cow rules, and I want to see it in a movie theater. But I'm saying that pretty much, like, I look at this and I see something like this and I'm like, oh yeah, I could pop this in on Netflix and enjoy myself and still be emotionally moved and all of the trappings that come with it. But I also, I want to see everything in a theater, don't get me wrong. But like, I think that like if something's going to move to Netflix and I got to choose between Concrete Cowboy and No Time to Die, I'm going to be probably choosing, Concrete Cowboy.
Just a reminder that this is an audio medium, so when you're doing that stuff, people aren't going to be able to catch it.
I have been on so many episodes with you already as your co-host, and I still didn't realize that because I'm just watching myself. I don't know you guys are here. I'm entertaining myself. What I was doing, guys, is a balance of scales with a funny face. All right?
It's also the third visual reference you've made in this episode.
Right.
Have I really
balancing of the scales in honor of our new Supreme Court Justice. But let's move on to Kevin.
I do a lot of facial movements, so Sean's just reading my facial movements and going off of that. Joe, I had a question for you because you're the Philly guy here. Is the cowboy movement strong in Philadelphia? Are there
never heard of it?
Okay, so it's not based on a true story.
I don't.
Or maybe
know.
it is. Maybe we don't know. Who knows?
I don't know. I haven't really looked at it. It's just I don't know.
Okay.
I really have. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Apparently they filmed in Philly. I didn't really realize that. But seeing some of the pictures with like Idris Elba walking around on a horse was kind of interesting with the backdrop of modern day Philadelphia. So who knows? I'll watch it. Let's be real.
We see Elba on a horse anywhere. Everyone's like, let him through. Who cares? It's Elba on a horse. Let him do whatever he wants. The man is God.
Man, I'm getting all the layups here for the transition. Speaking of gods, we did find out in the comic book corner that Oscar Isaacs is going to star as Disney Marvel's Moon Knight. And Moon Knight, of course, is a character that will ultimately play a role in the larger Marvel Cinematic Universe after having its own Disney Plus series. But the story follows a soldier who becomes the avatar for the Egyptian god of the moon and fights crime. This is I don't know much about Moon Knight besides what I've read since it was originally announced. It sounds really badass and modern, and I'm pretty pumped for it. And I think Oscar Isaacs is a perfect pick for this, in my opinion. Kevin, go to you for the superhero side of things.
So Moon Knight is really cool. He answers the question, and I'm worried that I'm going to use the wrong term, to be honest here. No, I know the wrong term. So it's what if Batman had like a dissociative disorder where he had thought he had multiple personalities. And so he is another billionaire tech boy with lots of gadgets. He has like moon boomerangs, I think, or something like that. Moonerangs, perhaps. And
come on.
I think so. And he's I don't want to use the word nuts. But it's the comic itself is wild, and the way that the panels blow up and talk and go into his different personalities and kind of shift. I know from like an art perspective, the books are really cool. I think Oscar Isaac is awesome, and I am really pumped about this. I had unfortunately heard a rumor that they might be casting Shia LaBeouf in this role, and I'm a big Shia fan. I support him all day and every day, and I was excited about that. But
I support Shia in the roles that he's excelling at right now. When you look at like Honey Boy and the Peanut Butter Falcon, I don't support him in big blockbusters because I think that he just gets lost in that, and that's not his.
We don't really know. We haven't seen him in too many like big budget multi-movie blockbusters, right?
I mean, not multi-movie, but he did headline a lot of films right after his Disney Channel days.
Holy shit, Transformers is like the biggest blockbuster multi-movie thing ever. So never mind. I'm wrong. You're right that he was good in Transformers, I thought, but I also think Moon Knight would really support him because there is a tinge to it that he could like really bring some wild behavior to. But I'm excited. I think this will be cool.
Agree to disagree on that one.
Yeah, well, no, it's tough because like I'll just go in with the Shia because like I do want I like to see Shia and everything. I think he's got this insane intensity that is really works, but he is kind of a nightmare to deal with. I've read some on anonymous sources of it's really bad. There's actors that are difficult to deal with, and we can't really go with what they're casting if they're difficult to deal with, but it's really difficult to have them on there. So something like a Marvel movie is really tough to put a risky person in there, or is really tough to put someone difficult to work with. And I'm saying that realizing that they literally gave the entire leader to Robert Downey Jr., who now seems like a golden boy hero. But in 2009, when he was given, or even earlier, when he was given Iron Man, it was like, are we sure about this? We're putting him in the face of this thing because it's a little bit tough. And he obviously just knocked it out of the park, and everything went perfectly. So hey, maybe Shia will be the new Iron Man. We're not even talking about Shia. It's Oscar Isaac. But
I know.
No.
That's my fault.
I will say though, I look at this and between this and pardon the name mess up, Tatiana Maslany for She-Hulk. Apparently she came out recently saying, I've literally never even heard this news that I was being cast as She-Hulk. And Oscar Isaac, and now I've heard a lot about this, is Oscar Isaac is being tapped for this. And what the hell does tapped mean? And so I can look at all the articles, and I wonder, sometimes I wonder if ink is being dried or not on these deals before it's getting out into the news. And hey, cool, I love talking about it, so let's keep talking about it. But I always wonder, what this means because Oscar Isaac is a very fascinating character actor. Pardon me. We all know who he is, but he goes from Llewellyn Davis, which he did a few things before that, and he just rises to the front so quickly. Is in a Star Wars movie, is given a character that is the furthest of the backseat. Except for all the minority characters, they're further back. But then he is next up, and then you think about what is his goal here? Because then he goes into Apocalypse, and Apocalypse is a freaking nightmare. And now he's going into this comic book thing. Does he want another retry into the comic book series? Is he just does he want another house? Because right on, if you want,
he wants a paycheck. That's what he wants.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I don't think he's going for his but everybody's doing this where they're like, the actors are jumping into these comic book characters. I'm not being a naysayer of this, by the way. I love it. I love getting these big time actors into these comic book roles, but I just want to know why. And is it just the paycheck? It might be. Do they want to really express the artisticness of this? And this makes it sound like I'm coming down on comic movies. I love them. I'll watch them all. I'm a huge fan, and I'm not even saying a but after this.
I think you're making it too complicated, to be quite honest. I really think that it's just there's so many comic book characters out there. They want to get a name of some sort in there, if they can. And that's obviously not true with all of the castings that we're seeing. But I think Oscar Isaac too has been under the Disney umbrella with Star Wars. Yeah. They liked what he did in there, and they're going to bring him over to Marvel. He's someone that I think can bring some attention to the role of Moon Knight, or the character of Moon Knight, and I think he's someone that will work well in the MCU ultimately. Mm-hmm. Just to follow up to last night's report was that he was in talks to do it. Tonight, Deadline is reporting that he's doing it, and they have a director as well. I already closed the article, but seems like things are moving fast on that.
All right, so yeah, I figure it means something. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. So I assumed something was happening, but I just always get nervous about that.
I feel like
this is what happens when you get your news from Facebook, Sean.
Well, hey, I'm just masks are the devil. Like, what can I say?
May I recommend guyatthemovies.com? It's your number one source for all of your movie news. All right,
where I go.
So let's move to Joe Manganiello. I can't pronounce this name. I thought
it's Joe Manganiello. Is that not
sure? It? We'll go with that. That's easy. Joe Manganiello.
It's Joe, No Time Left to Die.
Yeah, it's Sofia Vergara's husband. Deathstroke, his Deathstroke character, who we last saw at the end of Justice League in a after credit scene, is going to be part of the reshoots for Zack Snyder's Justice League. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go out on a little run here. First and foremost, the whole thing with this character of Deathstroke is that they originally were talking about him being the villain opposite Ben Affleck in the standalone Batfleck film that Affleck was set to direct, and I think he was writing it as well with other people and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. The design of Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke, in this, I think is phenomenal. I really enjoy it. I think he looks really good in the role. What we got at the end of the film, Justice League, that doomed film, was that Lex Luthor had escaped the asylum, and he was on a nice boat with a beautiful backdrop, and Slade Wilson visited him on said boat and kind of didn't really say much. And Lex Luthor finally said, we need to balance this out, or, strike a balance. We're going to put together our own team, our own league. And essentially people believe that was referencing the Injustice League, which, back in the day, the comic book writers, I don't know, were the most creative. They're like, we have a Justice League. What do we call the opposite of it? Injustice.
It's the dumbest name.
But so we're getting that. So here's where I think they're going with it. We also found out the news that we are getting the return of Jared Leto's Joker. So that's two villains right off the bat there. We get Lex Luthor involved as well. Because I don't know if he was supposed to be in the movie a little bit more at all, or if it was always going to be an after credit scene or whatnot. But, I assume we're going to see more of Lex Luthor. The three of them were part of the original Injustice League. And that is, to me, where I think they are going with this. I think they're going to focus on the villains a little bit, and a way to continue that Snyderverse to give Jared Leto another play at the villain of the Joker, to finally bring Deathstroke to life with Joe Manganiello. I think what they're going to do is end up focusing on an HBO Max series focused on the Injustice League. And I actually really like that news. Or like that, it's not news, like that rumor that I'm putting out there right now. The other villains that are included in Justice League, most common, because as we know with these comic books arcs, they get redone all the time, right? Even Justice League itself has characters coming in and out. But
membership varies.
Membership may vary. Cheetah, who is the villain in the upcoming WW84, Wonder Woman 84. We also have Black Manta from Aquaman. So right off the bat there, that's 5 villains. And Black Manta, by the way, Yaya's role as Black Manta, I loved. I'm a big Yaya stan, if you can't tell. Reverse Flash, who we're likely getting in the 2022 Flash movie, as well as Black Adam, who we know is coming down the road with The Rock at some point, even though it's not necessarily on the books right now for some odd reason. Star Sapphire, who doesn't fit my narrative right now, so I'm going to skip over. Grid, who also doesn't, but it's something with Cyborg, so that, hey, there's a relation.
It's like evil Cyborg, yeah.
Is that who it is?
Pretty much. It's an AI takes over Cyborg, I'm pretty sure. And like,
Ooh.
anyway.
The Joker, who I already mentioned, and that would be that. So that is my theory on where they're going with this. Sean, not to skip over you again, but Kevin was nodding along, so I'm hoping that he agrees with me here. But do you think that does that make sense where they might be going with this? And if so, do you like it?
Yeah, I think Manganiello. Before we go on, also just a credit to him, one of the biggest D&D fans I've ever seen in an attractive Hollywood person. For real, he's like really about it in a way that like I do have a D&D club at my school with middle schoolers, and it's something I love a lot. And he is
nice.
A big fan. I think also he knows his star power, how big that shines, and where he shines best. And I think he knows he'd be really well suited for playing Slade Wilson on an episodic series on an HBO Max. I think that's a tougher sell to your Jared Leto's. And I think it's a tougher sell even still to your The Rocks in getting them to come to HBO. So it's a lot of contracts to negotiate and to get in, to do a TV series. And even though I think, TV's back, maybe, and the streaming services changes that. But I don't know if we'll be able to get that kind of everybody in. I think doing maybe what I would rather see almost is just follow Joe and Deathstroke as he goes out and does his assassin stuff and make that the show. I think if you make it smaller and kind of gritty and pulpy, it would be a really fun take on that. I think Slade Wilson's cool because he's an assassin, and we should see him doing assassiny things, not sitting in boardroom meetings with the Joker somehow being there and them planning things out. So yeah, I would watch more Slade Wilson. I don't know if I would watch an entire series about the Injustice League.
I think it's pretty interesting. The only thing I'll kind of jump in with there is that we're noticing, or with these deals for the different comic book films or comic book projects, that they aren't just one-off deals. They're usually like 5 appearances or something like that. And I think that that's where we're getting with the introduction of streaming. It sounds like HBO Max is really going all in on a lot of their stuff, just as everyone else is too. Mm-hmm. So it wouldn't surprise me if we got some of that star power, because what we're seeing is that a lot of stars are returning to television and streaming. Exactly.
Well, the money is returning to television and streaming, right? That's where they follow, and that's where it is right now. Sean,
how about you? Any idea if you would watch this?
Oh, I would definitely watch it. I mean, like one thing I could think of is, it would be difficult to round up those celebrities, but also HBO Max has, I think they just did the check, and I think HBO Max has more money than God. And so I think they could literally get anything they want all the time for everything. But just to go back to Kevin's idea about, something with Deathstroke as the lead, and then could they have these guys pop in for different episodes? And it's like, this is the Joker episode. I don't know if that's a terrible idea or a good idea, just because I don't know anything about really comic book characters.
It sounds very WB-ish.
Villain
of the week.
Yeah, like serialized and everything. I also just want to talk about this in terms of the comics, because I don't know squat about comic book characters, but just what you guys sort of said at the Joker part of the Injustice League, I don't think the Joker is a part of anything. Like, even I didn't watch the Suicide Squad, but in the trailer he wasn't a part of the other people. He was kind of just like flootily dooting around out here because he doesn't really have his own thing. So is he in that boardroom being like, hush, I got a lunch meeting at 4. But I mean, that's more of just me thinking about like the agent of chaos and wondering like why he would be a part of something. But also,
I don't see famed anarchist the Joker signing into a Zoom call on time. Like,
Well, I need to ask, where did this board meeting Zoom call shit with the Injustice League come from?
because you think of the Justice League, they're in the Hall of Justice and they're all sitting around a table and they're like, how do we save the world now? And they're doing stuff that doesn't involve blowing buildings up, which I imagine is what these villains would want to be doing the whole time.
Yeah, so they just kind of like, maybe it's
With
like
a lot of
the
planning.
media that labels them the Injustice League, and that's pretty much it. That would make more sense.
I don't know. It should be interesting. One of the other arguments that's happening right now around Zack Snyder's Justice League, the director's cut, is that by doing all this, it's not necessarily the Justice League anymore. Like, you're kind of building other things. But this goes back to a conversation we had a while ago. I think it's a way to add a new bridge to other projects that potentially will continue to arise in the future, stemming from this. Man, couldn't get that on.
Well, just like one of the, just like The Hobbit. I mean, when we look at The Hobbit, Peter Jackson did that movie and it was like, oh, you're just doing a prequel to Lord of the Rings. Oh, no, you're putting all this Silmarillion stuff in there. And then you're putting these characters in there and you're making it 3 friggin' movies, like with all of the other stuff. And maybe it's like this last ditch effort. And so Snyder's saying like, ooh, I can put all this stuff in now because it's HBO Max money. Like I don't know.
I worry it's the other way around. That would really take the wind out of my sails. Where I was going into this thinking HBO is just like, all right, enough people want your crappy version of the crappy movie, so go put it out for them. And like Zack Snyder being like, finally, my vision can be complete. But the more news that comes out about this makes it sound like DC and HBO are like, all right, Zachary, we'll let you do your little film, your version of it, but you also have to introduce the new DC universe with it. And like, they're going to just shackle him with the same thing they shackled him with last time and just shackle him with a mini series worth of it now. I'm a little worried with the amount of bloat that's coming with it.
So apparently I'm going to defend him again, but here's why. The original end credit scene of Justice League set this up. So if it was going to be in Justice League 2 or whatever it may be, I don't know. We don't know what that would have been. So this, to us, it sounds like it's something completely out of left field. Maybe it wasn't. If it was, if it is out of left field, then, I share your concerns. I don't know.
I hope it's Zach's vision and it like also tanks DC for the next decade or so. Like, I really want it to be so weird and out there and different that DC was like, we made a horrible choice letting this out.
Interesting. Okay, well, we'll
in a
wait
good
to
way.
see how that
I'm rooting for Zach.
We'll let him know. Frequent listener of the pod.
Yes.
Anyway, speaking of concerning, Ben Wheatley, most recent movie he directed, Rebecca, has signed on to direct the Meg sequel that is called, believed to be called The Meg the Trench, because it's based on a story. Are you double checking if Ben Wheatley directed Rebecca?
He did.
No,
Okay.
I really did. Yeah.
I saw your eyes and I'm like, what? And then it seems like most of the cast will be returning. Discuss.
Let's see. Couldn't make a very interesting mansion romance, murder, mystery, haunted, scary movie interesting with Armie Hammer, Lily James, and Kristen Scott Thomas. Couldn't make that interesting. So I don't know how that big shark is going to really help him out. Listen, I've heard actually Ben Wheatley is actually a very good filmmaker. Besides Rebecca. So I am going to be doing some looking into that to look at some stuff and give this guy a fair shake, because Rebecca was so astronomically awful that I can't imagine, well, the one thing about Rebecca, it was boring. Like, if you make it entertaining, I'm kind of okay with it. And so you look at something like The Meg, which that hinges on just entertainment for me. Like, I'm not going to question the cinematography of The Meg 2. But I will be questioning if you've entertained me. And so, you better not be as boring as you were with Rebecca. That's all I'll say to Ben Wheatley, who is also a listener. Ben Wheatley, you better not be as boring as Rebecca.
Kevin, Meg fan?
I had a great time with the Meg. I think it knows exactly what kind of movie it is. It knows when to be overly serious and campy. It knew exactly how to use Jason Statham. I was all in. I think that's a really fun movie, and I miss those types of movies. And every movie that comes out now is like, maybe we can get some Oscar buzz. I don't know. We're a blockbuster, but the Meg was like, nah, don't worry, we're a popcorn flick. And one of the reasons that it works so well, I think, is because John Turteltaub knows popcorn flicks, right? He directed the first one, National Treasure 2, has a lot under his belt that's like fun movies. And that's something that's been lost in, I think, movie making and big studio films in the last a decade and a half or so.
Look at this. Nick Cage has returned to the studio from before. He visited a few weeks ago, if Sean remembers, when we were doing some, wonderful impressions.
Do I sound like Nicolas Cage right now? Is that what?
Hey, what's up?
Oh shit, Nick! I didn't see you. Sorry, shit.
I don't know. I just ended up.
We're gonna steal the Declaration of Independence. No, that's what it reminded me of. Anyway, being dumb. Carry on.
We did National Treasure. You got us on National Treasure to Turteltaub to National Treasure to Nicolas Cage impressions.
Yes, go back to your Turteltaub point.
It's really frustrating how you two thought you had better Nicolas Cage impressions than me. The freaking Nicolas Cage! I was in Wicker Man!
Anyway, so
that sounded like a WWE wrestler.
The Cage. Nicolas Cage, though. Yeah, the Cage.
He's great, but he's not in the Meg. But the Meg is great. John Turteltaub rocks. I don't know. We'll see. I don't think Ben Wheatley's the best, and it's a weird pick for the Meg too. That's where I stand.
I thought it was a weird pick. I agree with you there. But what National Treasure 3, the Meg. I also hate the name, and I hope that they change it. Because like the Meg, the Trench is just stupid.
That's a bad constructed name. Like it does not flow at all.
But also, it's a stupid movie, so that works perfectly. Like I know exactly what I'm buying a ticket for when I buy a ticket for the Meg, the Trench.
But you may not. You may not, and the reason is because James Wan is creating a Trench film spinoff of Aquaman. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have to play with that.
Right.
I mean, I look at the issue here and I just see the gigantic old school producer with the cigar and the 3-piece suit just going like, there's too many thes in the title. There's too many thes in the title. Make it Trench. And then all of a sudden James Wan sues. And so I don't know what the goal is here.
Damn, Trench is a cool movie name though. That's a badass title.
Speaking of badasses, Michael B. Jordan is going to be reprising his role in Creed 3. That is a franchise that has really taken off, and the films are really good, in my opinion. And it gave Sylvester Stallone something to do. So what we have found out recently is that not only will he be starring, but he is rumored to have been offered the director's chair. So kind of interesting. Thoughts on that?
I think we do it every time.
I think he does it on purpose.
I just let him wait till he goes, and then I just jump in front of him. You know what, Kevin? You go ahead.
I think that Michael B. Jordan has been working with Ryan Coogler a lot in his life, and I think Ryan Coogler has been nothing but a mentor to him. I think Jordan looks at Coogler as like a way to make it in Hollywood as an entrepreneur and as a person shooting their own shot in a really great way. And I think he's going to take a lot of lessons from the movies that they've made together. I think who knows what kind of director he'll be, but I think it makes sense at the end of the day. I think him making that step is like, hell yeah, get it, do it. I would love to watch that.
Get it.
Notably, not what I said.
So I think Michael B. Jordan has been working with Coogler a lot. I think the two of them can, really work together. Oh, no, sorry. I think that when it comes down to it, Michael B. Jordan, come on. All right. Michael B. Jordan has a lot of experience in, Hollywood. Obviously, he is pretty much a superstar. Unfortunately, this is the case, and this is more of a comedic thing is when you say name a black actor. You'll probably list a few, but Michael B. Jordan will be right in there. And I say that because he is pretty much one of the highest on Hollywood stars right now. And so I think that he has a lot of experience with huge movies, small movies, and, most of them Coogler. Black Panther, like all the way down to Fruitvale Station, which are both Coogler movies, but are tremendously high-level budget movies, so he understands the inner workings of what's going on there. And Fruitvale Station, where it's a movie that we're making this for about $13, and, you know, like we're understanding the inner workings there. So this guy knows everything beyond the camera. And you're right, he has someone who is like, you know, pretty much his best friend, I think, like working like as a director who can help him out, most likely. Now, my one thing with this issue is, and I don't know the stats on this, but he is going to be both starring and directing the movie. Now,
it's been done before.
Here's the thing: it's been done before, obviously. It's been done a lot, but you know, for a directorial debut, how would that go? Like, you know, would he be ready for it? Most likely, yes. That's my one question. That's me fishing for problems and fishing for controversy or, you know, conversation in this, without a doubt. But I think about, like, you know, I will genuinely probably look this up later of like, you know, who has debuted as a director and also acted in that same film. And I'm sure there's a lot of them. And there's the ones that are very low, like the, you know, like when I say low, I mean like, you know, the very low stakes ones, which are like, you know, low budget. And, you know, this person was the director and an actor. But, you know, I look at that kind of thing. Kevin, I think, is deep in the research now. So I'm very excited to see what comes up. So I'll just pretend. I just watched The Gift last weekend, and that was Joel Edgerton directing. And I can't imagine that he directed something before that. And he was the star of The Gift. You're correct. That is correct. There we go. Joel Edgerton. I knew there was someone.
Was he in Boy Erased at all? I didn't see that.
He was in Boy Erased.
In Boy Erased, yeah. He was the pastor.
All right. Okay. I'm just saying.
I mean, I literally just wanted to ask the question. I wasn't even saying that it would be a bad thing or a good thing.
You're making conversation. And I'm
Sean, I'd like to point out this. He will potentially be starring and directing in it. You know, sometimes I wonder if these, if the ink's still wet, you know, and not necessarily dry on the paper.
You know, this is fun because, like, you know, I'm here stirring the pot of a conversation of arguments and interesting things to say, and you guys just come at me with your Joel Edgertons and your ink is wet or dry, and like, you know, like, you know what next, like, I'm gonna do the next one. I'm gonna do the you know, speaking of someone hosting. Speaking of a okay, you do it.
You can do it, Sean. You can do it. I believe in you.
Speaking of going on too long, Blumhouse released a very lengthy press release this past week regarding their event that is coming up on Thursday. It is called Bloomfest. A few things right off the bat before I actually explain what this is. One, it's stupid. Two, the logo is terrible. And three, here's what it is. Join Jamie Lee Curtis, Freaky stars Vince Vaughn and Catherine Newton, Ethan Hawke, Amazon Studios' Jennifer Salke, Zoe Lister-Jones, and the cast of The Craft Legacy, Jason Blum, and surprise guests for Blumfest 2020, a Blumhouse fan event for horror and genre aficionados. That's weird. So that's happening online at 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific on Thursday.
Is that a green pumpkin as the logo?
It is a green pumpkin.
Why is it green?
Why is it a pumpkin? It should be like a house or something. Like,
if it was an orange pumpkin, I wouldn't be questioning this at all. It's a green pumpkin. I mean, I know that we should be talking about the movies here, but it's a green pumpkin. I first thought it was an onion, by the way. So.
It looks like something I made in the early days of Guy at the Movies. I hate it. I mean, I don't have anything else to say about this.
I'm excited for Freaky. I mean, like, you know, hey, Freaky's going to be probably my favorite movie of the year. So let's do it. Like that, like, you know, oh God, I can't wait for that one.
I wonder if this is more for them than it is for us. You know, like I was reading the copy of what they had released about it, and it's like, you know, we lost a lot this year, got wiped off our slate, and we cherish Halloween, and it's like obviously the most important holiday to us, and like we wanted to do something for our fans. I don't know. I feel maybe less cynical about it. I'm like, thanks, Blumhouse. Like, I too love horror, and I love what you're doing for the genre. I don't love every film you make, but like, thanks for putting on a stupid panel full of scream queens for me to perhaps gawk at on a Thursday afternoon. maybe.
Well, that's what I wonder. Like, I think about the Blumhouse thing. Like you just said, I don't like every single thing they've done, and I think that's the problem with Blumhouse. Is they've done some of the best things in the past decade, and they've also done some of the worst. And pretty much every single time they come out, I mean, you see it every trailer from the producers of Get Out. I mean, holy crap, they're just riding that one home. It's just
not if it was from the producers of Annabelle, though. They'll say that.
Producers of Annabelle. Then there's I would love to say the producers of Fantasy Island. Bring it on, guys. I think that what you're saying is I don't know if they have that fan base that will be willing to jump online for this. I know, Kevin, you're going to get mad for a second, like A24 does.
I'm glad you brought that up, Sean.
Well, so that's
there is no A24 without Blumhouse. Maybe not that grand, but seriously, there is no elevated new genre of horror that you can fucking in your tweed smoking vest watch and feel good about yourself while you.
I knew he was going to do this. He's going
to light a cigar with your
they gave us some of the best films of
brown or something. Listen, I love them all, but I do, but I'm frustrated that people are like, oh, Blumhouse, that's stinky. A24, I like that. You don't get the elevated horror without Blumhouse bringing horror back, the genre itself, back into the mainstream. People lining up to see Insidious 2, people going into theaters to see crappy, they know exactly what they're going to get, schlocky horror films. Blumhouse brought that back for a new generation. And then because of that, A24 gets to build off of it and bring you The Lighthouse and Hereditary and whatever Ari Aster wants to do next.
I'll give you that.
I love both of those things greatly. And I see both of them under the same umbrella of horror, which I love, which is why you brought me on to Guy at the Movies podcast to talk about. It's great stuff.
I think my problem with Blumhouse is that they are now throwing shit against the wall to see what sticks. And while there are some really good projects and properties that are out there, as you've both mentioned, a lot of the shit we're getting is just shit. And that's what I think is frustrating me, because I used to see Blumhouse and be excited about the quality that we were going to get. And now I go into everything with a question. It's not a must see or must watch for me anymore, just because of that.
I think horror is easier to judge on that, is all I'll say. I think it's easier to write a horror movie off as shit than it is some prestige drama or something.
Yeah, but I think that the Welcome to the Blumhouse films would beg to differ, because they were not good.
I will say, with Blumhouse, that has always been their goal, is exactly what you said, Joe, is where it's they're throwing everything against the wall and seeing what sticks. And now that sounds like a bad business model, and it is, because you get a mistrust of the viewers. But on the other hand, pretty much you end up funding everything you possibly can. You don't be a skeptic producer anymore. You just kind of throw everything there. Now, that gives us something like Get Out. I mean, come on. I mean, maybe I'm the only one, but raise your hand if you thought Get Out was going to be kind of a mess, because it's oh, cool, a comedy sketch writer is going to now direct a horror movie. This doesn't sound great. And then all of a sudden I was just hey, Rotten Tomatoes said it's 100. I'll go to the theater. And then I think it's the greatest movie I've ever seen. And so now it's and they did that. Blum did that. Jason Blum right now is working on he's producing, or he's helping to produce, he already produced it. Sorry, I'm bad with this. The Good Lord Bird on Showtime with Ethan Hawke as John Brown, which is astronomically great. Granted TV, but this guy is just I'm going to take every risk. I guess his idea of it is, I'm going to throw all the money there, which means, I don't know, maybe he'll go bankrupt eventually. But then, like Kevin's saying, a lot of this stuff people are going to go to the theaters to see and eventually see it. That being said, the four Amazon Blumhouse movies from Welcome to the Blumhouse, well, I only saw half of them, but that half that I saw were terrible.
Sure.
I don't know where I was. I don't know where my point was there. I was sort of defending both Kevin and Joe, I think, or maybe neither of you guys. I'm not really sure. I'm not good at arguing.
I just worry how
Sorry.
I just worry how how Blumhouse is going to succeed in the future with. And I'm going to answer my question right after I say this, but with the way that theaters and productions are going to look in the future, where, we're going to see budgets tightening and post-COVID life be a little bit more, I think, intentional in terms of the projects that are out there. But the answer is streaming and stuff. So negate that.
I think that Blumhouse is not to bring like an equity thing into this, right? But let's bring some equity into this a little bit, because one of the reasons that Blumhouse is going to be fine and they're going to survive this patch and whatever patches come up, it's because their movies are cheap to make. They don't spend a lot of money on their movies, and what that allows is a person with a dream and a script can approach and make something there still in a way that is by their shoestrings and scrappy. And a lot of the time, yeah, it doesn't come together. They don't have the same vision as the Coens or Spielberg maybe, but they tried something, and they're going to keep putting those cheap movies out. And then maybe every 10, maybe every 15 movies, you're going to get a Get Out. And guess what? That Get Out gets to pay for the next 15 movies. No problem. Easy business.
Exactly.
And so what that does is allows more voices to enter the genre and share their stories, which I appreciate very much. I'm getting a little too soapboxy and serious about Blumhouse. I do think they're one of the better companies in Hollywood, and I trust them to be like putting people out there that I'm really excited and maybe not always hitting, you know.
I'm with you on the supporting artists that otherwise wouldn't get the support. What I would hope for is a separate or another umbrella, another title for a company or a what's the word I'm looking for? Production arm that is going to feature those projects that they are not most confident in. And the reason I say that is because of what I mentioned a little while ago. It to me, the success of Get Out a few years ago isn't going to continue to get me excited about Blumhouse films when I have seen such shit Blumhouse films for the past 6 months, 9 months, whatever it is. So I don't disagree with you. I think they're a great company, I think it's a great arm or great. I keep using the word arm. I don't know why. That's the word of the night. Look for that in all 3 reviews I'm releasing tomorrow.
Sandbox. Yeah.
Yeah. Sam. yeah. But I don't know. I think that type of approach has an end date, and what drives that end date can be a variety of things. I worry that maybe fans are going to become apathetic.
Can I push back one more time?
Of course.
This is great. No, I love it. But I just think that the horror is a special genre in which cheap bootstrappy movie making has always been prevalent in the 70s, in the 60s, in the 80s, in the 90s. Every single decade has shown us filmmakers that are passionate about making some kind of, usually about a horror film. Like I think of Peter Jackson, for instance, right? We don't think of him as a horror guy, but when he started out making movies, he was doing it with his own New Zealand funded budget and doing some of the most grotesque, far out body horror that you could do in a movie. And I think that's always going to be there. You're going to always have kids who want to make a horror film, don't have the money, but they're going to make it because it's burning their souls up to not, right? And I don't see that in other genres so much. And I think that's the sole reason that it's going to be different than if Blumhouse were in any other genre film, I think.
I don't disagree with that either. It doesn't mean I'm going to watch them, though.
Oh, yeah, same. I unfortunately will, and I'll just keep those opinions to myself. I'll be like, another one where I got tricked by Blumhouse. Check.
All right. So speaking of horror films, speaking of it, also another thing I keep saying tonight. Man, really self-critical.
Those transitions, baby.
Yeah, that's your transition, man. That's your move.
I got to work on those transitions a little bit. Let's talk about Scream as our wrap up to Scream Watch. Scream 4. Let's get to the wonderful summary of the film. This came out in 2011, 11 years after the previous film. It has been many years since the Ghostface killer cut a deadly path through the town of Woodsboro. In order to get over the trauma of those horrific events, Sidney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell, has written a self-help book. She returns to Woodsboro for her book tour and reconnects with old friends Gale Weathers and Sheriff Dewey. However, Sidney's arrival also sparks the return of Ghostface, putting Sidney and everyone she loves in danger. All right, Sean.
So I looked at this one, and I'm going to sort of just before really liked it, really didn't like it. I'm not going to say either one of those. I'm going to just sort of just say what I thought about it, just without that official declaration. And the first thing I noticed, and this is probably the most interesting thing, and I don't exactly know how to put this, but this feels like a time capsule film, even though it's from 9 years ago. And this is a weird thing to bring up, but the cinematography of this feels like a later aughts, early teens film, which it literally is, but it just kind of has that, we're going digital, but we're not quite sure of digital yet. I don't even know if it was shot on digital yet, but it really has that sort of look of like you've seen this in a lot of movies at this time. So right off the bat, first pass digital, exactly. It had fun and new creative moments. It had a final moral that was actually pretty brilliant to what the time was. In a way, it was a little bit ahead of its time with social media and just like organizing what the hero is going to be and the perception of a hero and wanting to be that hero and just wanting the likes, even though likes didn't really exist yet. I was kind of like excited about how it predicted that sort of like before it even like really came about. I think that, it's great that, like you just said, it's been 11 years. And so people are pulling pranks about it, even though people pulled pranks right after the grotesque murders happened. And so like these sociopathic kids anyway. But now like people are like still pulling the pranks, still hanging the ghost face on the lamppost. And so we already said like, oh, time has passed by. I look at this and I see, what happened is, obviously 3 went very poorly in terms of how it was received. We're not going to go into that. In terms of how it was received, I meant to say that part of that sentence a lot sooner because I'm getting 2 disapproving looks from my lovely people here in our lovely StreamYard. It was received very poorly, and so it was kind of shut down. And then eventually they came back with it, and they came back at the right time in this new modern age that is before really the social media completely took off. Social media existed, but it didn't, elect a president. And so, it's just something that has just gotten worse and worse. Just the other thing I wanted to say about it, I'm all over the place because I really liked this modern day look of this, is that this had a new cast. And it had a new cast of people that we know, we don't know. There's a lot of like familiar faces that we now know about. And really, that is just something where it's like the older cast sort of stood in the back. Yeah, they were there. Yeah, their characters sort of mattered. And yeah, eventually they ended up fighting. But they sort of stood in the back and let the younger characters, let the high school kids take advantage of this. So I liked this. And I think that, for a numerous amount of reasons, it sort of just like really was the Scream that was needed at this time. And I think that I'm way more excited for Scream 5 based on this one. All right. That's me. Go.
Kevin, what's up? How are you? Hanging in there?
I'm here, baby. Controversial take. I obviously like Scream 3. I think Scream 4 might actually be the best Scream sequel, however. And I was actually blown away. So first off, I watched it yesterday, and it was an incredibly long day. I was literally working the first time I could watch Scream was around 9 o'clock at night. And I had been going from the morning. And so for me to even bear through it is incredible. Because the whole time I was like, I'd rather be doing anything else right now because I just want to get back to my life, right? But watching this, and I'm in it, and the more I watch it, I'm like, damn, this is actually like a good use of my time. And I'm actually really enjoying myself. And the reasons why are because I cared about the characters. I think it's the best acted Scream sequel. I think they bring in a bevy of a who's who of people that you recognize and know. Save the Cheerleader, Save the World. She's in it. We got a Culkin in here. We got our best boy from the OC as a cop with Anthony Anderson. Like, what the heck? Like, what is going on?
Anderson and Adam Brody. Yes.
It's nuts. But this understands. Let me look at my Google Keep notes. I was writing notes throughout it. And this movie understands a lot that I think the others... When others leaned into camp, this one knows that it should be a little bit more serious at this point. When others lean into absurdity or the jokes, this one's more self-assured about what kind of movie it wants to be when. So it's funny when it needs to be funny. It's actually scary when it needs to be scary. And it's tying things together in a really great way where you end up caring about the characters, caring about what happens next, care about the stakes without revealing it. It was the only ending outside of Scream 1 that I enjoyed and thought was earned and was actually like, hell yeah. And Sean, to what you were saying, you're giving Craven like a little bit of credit for being a little bit before his time. It's incredible how prescient this film is. And I like the halfway point of my notes are just basically like, this movie has no idea that Twitch is about to hit. And seriously, like,
no, that's so true.
and they played off as a little bit of a joke where it's like, oh, what, you just film your whole high school experience? And I literally am watching by myself out loud. I'm like, yeah, pretty much. That's how it goes, dude. And like, it's spot on. And I really loved it for that. I want to throw in a couple of other quick pieces. Just Courtney Cox. I feel bad. I hope she doesn't listen to the show. She's awful in this film, and they finally realized that she's not a very good actress and really cut down her screen time in a merciful way. It sucks because it's the only Scream movie where she doesn't have an atrocious haircut that makes you feel bad about yourself. It's the only kind of normalish one that she's got throughout the series, but it was no good. Everybody else in this, though, pretty great, especially Culkin. I thought he was wonderful, and yeah, that's what I've got to say about that.
Nice. I admittedly did not rewatch this one for this podcast because I was leaning back on having seen it not too long ago, like a year ago or something. But I'm realizing that I completely forget everything about it as we're talking. So I'm likely going to be watching that tonight.
It leans heavily in the third act into camp. Like that's when it's so. Can we spoil it? It's more recent, but like, can I talk about the ending?
Sure.
So spoilers from here on out, but. At the end, after not Brittany Snow, but what's her face? Who turns out to be the killer? Another Scream Queen. That's what also something I loved. There are so many quote unquote Scream Queens in this movie.
Was it Hayden Panettiere?
No, but it was the other one. Who is in Coven, American Horror Story Coven.
Emma, I'm looking it up. It's gonna bother me.
That one.
Emma Roberts.
Emma Roberts. She's great and she's awesome in this. And when she says like, "I'm doing it for the fan," I don't want friends. I want fans. I both felt bad and I felt it in my bones and also felt like, yeah, Wesley, you're right. That's how people get big on YouTube now, is that they just stop caring about their fellow human being. And they're like, what's up, everybody? I'm Jake Paul's brother. We're going to blow up this homeless man. Make sure to like and subscribe. This is YouTube. And like, that's where we're at now. And he didn't even have that. Like, he didn't even realize that's what we were going to, but was able to like sniff it out enough that like, dang, I like this movie a lot. I think this is a pretty smart movie.
It's really good.
I definitely need to revisit it. But I am excited for Scream 5. I think it's a good time for it. But at that point it will be almost 11 years since the last one came out. I'm in for it.
I mean, I wonder what they're going to do, because they properly predicted the social media, and now we're in this age of god-awful, horrific social media.
We're in it now.
So it's like, is it just going to be like a recording of Wes saying, I was right, and then just like that? It's just like we all have to leave, and it's like, $10 for that? Like,
I hope not.
Yeah,
I'm sure
I don't
there's
know.
something there, but it's like, are they going to be like, just like, chest beating, like, hey, how we doing? Or are they going to try to predict the next new thing, like Asteroid? I don't know. Like, because they really kind of nailed it. And, like, Kevin, you even, like, put it better when you said Twitch. I couldn't stop laughing, because, like, that is exactly what that kid has on his head. And
it's real.
It's like, oh, my God, they nailed the prediction there.
Yeah,
and
I've read some articles that said, like, Wes was people worried that, like, Wes was too hard on the millennials with this and, like, was just, like, angry at them and shaking a fist. And I thought it was more a sadness that we were missing out on the stuff that made Scream 1 great, your blockbusters, you're going to things, right? But now everything is so meta-contextualized and like winking and in on the joke, and we all know about the thing this is referencing. I totally agree with him. It makes me sad as a person who, like, we're not getting the media, we're getting the media thinking about the media, thinking about the media, and it's where we are now. And he totally put his finger on the pulse with it.
Well, there was this morbid, like, weirdly morbid way that I was just like, I sort of feel sorry for Emma Roberts, just because she was willing to murder all these people to get fans. Now, granted, she murdered all these people, so I'm not going to feel terribly sorry for her. But it was just one of these things where she is transformed into someone liking her, not in real life, because she had someone liking her in real life. Big ups to Culks. But, she also, just wanted everyone to like her, and she wanted that narrative. And I don't even know if Wes was saying, well, yeah, because she's going to want a lot of likes on Instagram or something like that. I think it was more of just our wanting to be loved. It was the deeper issues with social media than what that social media documentary talked about. Instead, this talks about oh yeah, no, the kid wants the tap on the Instagram thing. No, he doesn't. He wants to just be loved. He wants to be adored. He wants to be admired. He wants there's a reason it didn't say he wants likes, or she said she wants likes. She wants fans. She wants a large group of people.
Adoration. Yeah.
And it's just it was just scary how much that was nailed perfectly.
It was so well done. And I think she doesn't even realize what she's fully saying, right? And we're supposed to in that moment. Also, Culkin, I think it's the best. It makes the most sense out of any Scream, including Scream 1, because even in the 90s, the horror movies make people violent thing was but we know it doesn't. We know this is fake. But now, it's a little realer. And I realize I'm growing up and maybe I'm the kids today, but it is nowadays there is a little bit more nihilism because look around you, what's going on. So the kids are going to be yeah, obviously we're not going to have a world in front of us in a decade from now because of climate change. So hell yeah, let's boot up and get as many followers on TikTok as I can get. Right.
I think one of the main things that I looked at, and that's exactly I was subbing for a history teacher, and they said, put in Saving Private Ryan, just the first 15 minutes. And I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I'm putting in the first 15 minutes of Saving Private Ryan. So I'm warning the kids. I'm talking to them about it. Hey, listen, if you have to look away, I'll totally understand. Kids didn't even, we're looking right at it, didn't even care. And maybe that's because, I don't know, did movies advance in the past 20 years? Maybe. But I just think about it as just is there that kind of level where it's okay, we're desensitized to this, and that ties into probably all of the Screams and how we're pretty much desensitized to trauma based on what's going on in the news, or we're desensitized to the media based on how much we are seeing violence and everything like that. And does it turn you into a killer or not? I mean, maybe it turns you into someone who's obsessive, and that could be an issue. But. I'm looking up which Culkin it is because I was trying to figure out the Culkin.
It's Rory. It's Rory. It's Rory. It's my third favorite Culkin. But he's still very good. Hey, third best Culkin is better than your top best Baldwin. That's what I'm going to say. But
interesting.
I just want to say real quick too, Stabathon, which takes place in Scream 4, loved. All about how did these kids in high school get a projector system in a barn set up? That's fine, whatever. What I really cared about is that Stabathon is what the beginning of Scream 2 should have been, and didn't, and it made me hate Scream 2 even more, to be honest.
Because of the movie premiere. I know you had the movie premiere.
Scream 2 starts with the movie premiere where everybody's screaming throughout it as if it's Stabathon. I'm none of you idiots have seen this movie yet. And so this was they get that it's Rocky Horror Picture Show and that they're running with that. I really loved it.
All right, so moving on. Let's talk Scream 4. How'd you feel about it?
So I think the social media of it. Well, no, let me do this for Joe. Let me do this. Speaking of Scream 4, we are now going to move on to the end of the show.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Scream 5. That's what you were meant to say, right? You want to talk about Scream 5 for a second? What are our predictions?
Or was he doing a bit?
Oh, I thought. Never mind. I read into it sincerely because I think Scream 5. What do you think is going to happen in Scream 5?
Trying to figure out which one of you I want to remove from the stream right now.
I think you probably want to remove both of us and just end the show, but
pretty even. Scream 5. I think we talked about it a little while ago in terms of what it's going to be. Let's save that for another time because we still have over a year until it comes out.
I just realized that if I filibuster long enough, then I'll never be off the podcast. If I just make this podcast episode last a year, then I'm good. You can't kick me off.
We'll have you back in 14 months for Scream 5. Don't worry.
Every October we'll bring you back.
Yeah.
Well, that is actually a segue that you just did. But Kevin, this is your final episode with us.
Kevin,
until you come back. Thank you for being here. It was a lot of fun having you involved. I almost said math teacher had told me But Sean had told me that you guys are always chatting movies and that you would be great on the pod, and I think you were a welcomed addition.
Thank you very much. It's been an honor and a pleasure to be here, for real. I love you guys. This has been great.
Kevin, thank you. Like, just to say a lot about Kevin, I mean, just like, the mushy stuff, Kevin was like there for me through all of high school. Just like through any sort of issue that I had, he was right there for me. And then way more importantly, he was there to talk with me about movies. And that's just way more important than any sort of human emotion or human connection that I need to actually exercise to. So, that's just one thing I want to say. But, follow him on Letterboxd at KevBot9000. He deserves it. He needs it. Well, no, wow.
He needs it. He needs it. These kids today need that social media.
That was terrible. After
just
all
want
of
fans.
that, I say you're a needy loser. He desperately needs to get followers. But no, follow him on that. His movie takes are hysterical. His reviews are on point. They're lovely. Like, definitely give him a follow. I'm doing your plugs for you, but I just want to.
Thanks. I'll take that.
Before we go, let's take a look at what's coming out this week. There's not really much, but there is a horror film called Come Play that is coming out on Friday. It is. I saw it last week, and it's a movie. My review will be out tomorrow, I believe, is when the embargo's up. But it's a fresh new horror film, so it's definitely worth taking a look at and checking out. We also have tomorrow The Craft Legacy hits VOD, and that's pretty much it for this week, to be honest. It's Halloween week, so yeah. So this weekend, I'm sure there'll be a lot of different things going on. One of those will be I will be on a stream of the original Halloween film, 9 p.m. Eastern on Saturday in costume, and I forgot about that, so I have to get a costume. But that will be happening with Talking TV and a whole bunch of fun people. So definitely show up for that. Sean, where can people find you?
You can find me at Math Teacher Movies on Instagram. I do a whole bunch of fun reviews, Monologue Mondays, What the Oscars Got Wrong Wednesdays, and Final Shot Fridays. And I was also on the Silver Screen podcast last week, so take a look at that. My name is Sean Phillips, Sean. The Silver Screen podcast did a little bit of a whoopsie and colonized my name, if you will, into SHAWN, which I will never appreciate more than anything. This was a longer plug than needed to happen.
This is going to be very inappropriate. But have you ever seen the Ali Wong stand up on Netflix?
I haven't, but I wanted to.
So please watch the original one because it's absolutely hilarious. But this is really, I shouldn't even go this route, but I'm going to. Do it. She's talking about dating white men and how she wants the guy's head in between her thighs, and she starts squeezing it. And she goes, "Colonize the colonizers." And that just reminded me of it. It's so funny.
God. Ali Wong is amazing.
So there we go. Anyway, Kevin, where can people find you?
Still waiting on that Twitter appeal to my suspension. I did some of the best writing I've ever put together. I showed it to Sean. It's really a masterpiece, in my opinion, on why I should stay and the president should be kicked off instead. And then also check out American Utopia on HBO Max. And Blaseball. I didn't invent it. It's not a thing, or it is a thing, but it's a game online that has been making me feel really happy in the last couple of weeks. So check out blaseball.com.
Nice. Wrapping up a little bit, just a programming note that next week, because November 3rd is the election, which Sean will touch on in just a second, we will be recording next Monday evening on the 2nd, and so the podcast will come out the morning of the election, which will be great. But we're going to be, I think Sean and I are I think all of us on here, right, are going to be having evenings on my friend texted me today and goes, so what are we drinking next week? And I'm like, we're not going to be together. He's like, what are we drinking next week? So it's going to be an evening. But one thing, Sean, just to kind of tip you off for it, think about election-centered movies. I know you mentioned An American President earlier, but we're going to start talking about that'll be kind of one of our little gimmicks next week. We'll talk about election films.
Nice.
Fun.
Remember to email Guy at the Movies podcast and say, we demand Kevin be brought back on as soon as possible for as many shows as possible today and every day.
That is Guy at the Movies podcast.org.
.gov.
.gov. Yeah, it's .gov.
.gov.
All right.
So one other thing that we want to remind you is that COVID cases are flying up, and the country looks like it is going through a bit of hell. As you see, Kevin is showing us the proper way to wear a mask, not like Borat, but oh, look, we're getting double masked here. Wow. But definitely make sure that you are going to be wearing your mask if you are going to be going out, because it is hell out there. There is a third mask. This is just like a clown car of masks. So that is happening, but please wear your damn mask. Sean, what's going on next week?
So, please just at this point, registration is probably shot. I don't know if anyone can register anymore. But what I need you to do is go on to iwillvote.org and immediately check your registration. I've realized I've been doing this on this podcast, and the other day I was like, oh God, I haven't checked my registration. I checked it. I'm good. But check it again. Check it the next day, because they'll just lapse it. Everyone's just going to be forbidden to vote. If you are doing a mail-in ballot, it should already be in. What's wrong with you? Mail in your ballot, your ballot. All right. Please, if you are going to be there in person like me, who didn't trust the post office for some reason, and now I really wish I did and just mailed in a ballot. But anyway, I'm looking at where my polling place is opening. It's opening at 6 a.m. I'm getting there at 5. I'm not even doing a bit here. Get there early, sit down there, wait there forever. And also there's going to be a podcast that opens that. Well, actually not that early in the morning, but there'll be a podcast that
we'll have it scheduled. I'll schedule it early.
Keep going throughout the day.
And then just listen to the Guy at the Movies podcast. Listen to all of them. You'll hear about all of our screams. Just please vote. I don't care. Be late to work. Don't show up to work. Be sick to work. I don't care. Get to voting. And then, as Kevin says before, I'm going to steal his message because I love it, is stay informed after, regardless of what happens. Stay informed with multiple sources. Stay informed with a whole bunch of very trusted sources. And just also continue to email people. Well, Kevin can't do this right now, but tweet at people, and just continue to tweet at your politicians, contact your politicians. Just keep on going with this, because the voting is going to be a huge part. It's probably one of the most important parts, but then after that, it's going to be even more of work. But just please vote. If you don't vote, you're kind of an asshole. Honestly, I don't even want to deal with you. That's what I'll say.
A message to all you kids out there.
Yeah. You 16-year-olds that can't vote, you assholes.
And one thing that I do want to focus on there is, if you do have the mail-in ballots, I think they were saying today was when you really should have had it postmarked. But if you can't do that, there are ballot drop boxes in most states. I think 40 states have drop boxes, at least up until this election. So I don't know if more have them, but it's very easy to do so. Just go to it's usually the local courthouse or wherever, but just look it up online. You'll find it. But drop it off, get it in there. If you know people that haven't voted yet and don't have a plan, bully them into making a plan. My mom and I bullied my father last night, and he voted this morning early. So it works. Bullying works. No, I'm kidding.
Everybody bullied.
It gets better until you have to vote, and then you get bullied all over again.
Yeah. But that's it for the Guy at the Movies podcast with Joe and Sean. Kevin, thank you once again. You can listen to the Guy at the Movies podcast with Joe and Sean anywhere that you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcast,
Overwatch. No,
Overcast. That one.
I always do it every time.
Stitcher and all of those other fun ones. Find us on Anchor. Please rate us. Give us 5. That would be great. High 5. And also leave some comments, because we enjoy reading them. Until next week, wear your damn mask and
vote.
All right. See ya.
Well.